representative of Mozambique.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished heads of delegations, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure and honor that I take part in the 76th session of the General Assembly, representing His Excellency Felipe Jacinto Nyusi, President of the Republic of Mozambique, who, due to pressing issues related to his agenda, couldn't be here in New York. Excellencies, let us convey our warm congratulations to His Excellency Abdullah Shahid for his election to the presidency of the 76th session of the General Assembly. We convey our appreciation to the excellent work done by his predecessor, His Excellency Volkan Bozkır, who performed an excellent work. To our friends, the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, we convey our words of appreciation for his exceptional leadership. Excellencies, the United Nations General Assembly is gathered once again, at times characterized by multiple challenges of global nature. The theme chosen for the current session reflects the unique and difficult context in which all the countries in the world find themselves since 2019, on account of the COVID-19 pandemic. Since its outbreak, we have witnessed notable efforts by different actors, governments, regional and international organizations, private sector, and civil society, in a joint effort to face this global phenomenon threatening humanity. It is to commend the central role of the United Nations, including through the World Health Organization, in coordinating actions aimed at mobilizing means and resources to save lives and the world from the pandemic. Mozambique has taken important measures, such as introduction of restrictive measures, increasing testing capacity, community sensitization, and capacity building campaigns about the importance of preventive care in the fight against COVID-19. Preventive care measures included putting in place public health and social measures and the distribution of vaccines. Excellencies, one of the main challenges we, the developing countries such as ours, are faced with relate to access to essential medicines and vaccines. We believe that the private sector and the international cooperation partners have a crucial role to play in providing support and building the critical infrastructure needed to administer vaccines. We are in favor of a temporary waiver of certain clauses of the Agreement on Trade-related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, TRIPS, to allow an efficient response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Vaccines represent today an essential good intrinsically linked to the right to live and to life, a fundamental right which is incumbent on all of our countries to defend. Historically, humanity has shown resilience when faced with great challenges. We are therefore hopeful that once more we shall overcome the pandemic. Given the scarcity in resources, it is imperative that we renew our appeal to the international community to channel its support so that we can jointly successfully defeat COVID-19. Its impact on developing countries challenges all to find effective resource mobilization, means and mechanisms aimed at stimulating the economic recovery of countries strongly hit by the pandemic, thus ensuring that we are on track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. The pandemic had a negative impact on the economic slowdown in Mozambique in 2020. Estimates indicate that we will resume our economic recovery this year, averaging growth rates of 1.3% of GDP, followed by a more sustained recovery from 2022 onwards. We would like to thank once more our international partners for the support rendered towards actions aimed at fighting the pandemic. In this context, the revitalization of the United Nations and of multilateralism is of utmost importance. It is furthermore vital to revive the reform agenda of the United Nations in order to give impetus to cohesion, articulation, efficacy, and efficiency of inclusive decision-making processes. In this context, the strengthening of cooperation and joint efforts are essential to promote the global agenda and of a more just, equitable, balanced, and safe world. Mr. President, Excellencies, the world continues to witness threats to international peace and security. The prevalence of terrorism and violent extremism, combined with the proliferation and trade of arms, constitute a serious threat to peace and security at national, regional, and global levels. The African continent is amongst the most affected regions by terrorism and violent extremism. Terrorism merits the unmitigated attention of the whole international community, particularly the United Nations, given the suffering and bereavement it causes in our respective countries. It is incumbent on all of us to come up with measures on how best to defeat it. In our country, terrorist activities have been seen in some districts of the Cabo Delgado province, in the northern part of Mozambique. The level of destruction of the social and economic tissue, the atrocities and massacres, the wanton destruction of infrastructure and looting of goods belonging to communities have caused mourning, pain, and profound suffering, leading to an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. Our government has embarked on a coordinated response to face terrorism, with the involvement of various partners at national, regional, and international levels, and we can highlight positive developments and progress in the fight against terrorism. In this context, we count on the support of our regional body, SADC. We also count with the help of the defense forces of Rwanda. Mr. President, the European Union, other international partners and friendly countries have provided humanitarian assistance and training and modernization of our defense and security forces. We wish to thank the international community for the support rendered to our efforts in the fight against terrorism and assistance for the displaced population as a result of terrorism. Excellencies, we would also like to thank the support provided by the international community to the disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration of the former guerrilla elements of Renamo in the framework of the implementation of the Agreement on Peace and Reconciliation. Mr. President, Excellencies, climate-related issues are emerging as one of the most pressing issues at international level. The preservation of the human habitat environment is intrinsically linked to the survival of human civilization. Africa is one of the most vulnerable continents and most prone to natural disasters, which are increasing in frequency and intensity. Mozambique's location makes it prone to natural disasters, particularly cyclones, which occur with higher frequency lately. More than a year and a half after the country was hit by Cyclone Idai, efforts are still ongoing aimed at reconstructing and recovering from the social and economic damages caused. It is therefore for this reason that Mozambique attaches particular importance to concerted efforts towards mitigating the effects of climate change within the Sendai framework on disaster risk reduction and the Paris Agreement on climate change. Climate change continues to pose a major obstacle to the implementation of socio-economic development programs in our countries. Despite our negligible contribution to greenhouse gas emissions, it is countries like ours that are most affected by climate change, particularly by global warming. The cuts in international financing for programs aimed at promoting resilience and adaptation to climate change has led to an adverse impact and constitutes a major challenge to developing countries. Mr. Presidency, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that the development goals inscribed in the Paris Declaration on Aid Effectiveness are important elements in the measures aimed to rebuild sustainably our societies. Effectively, they are a factor to consider when renewing our commitment to the decade of action to deliver the sustainable goals and in the context of the implementation of the Agenda 2030. The lack of resources could seriously jeopardize the achievement of the objectives under the 17 Sustainable Development Goals should current resource mobilization and disbursement patterns remain persistent unchanged. In Mozambique, the implementation of the Agenda 2030 is undertaken in tandem with and aligned with the government's 5-year program 2020-2024. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our country reaffirms our commitment towards the implementation of international legal instruments aimed at strengthening peace and security, particularly the Arms Trade Treaty, the Nuclear Weapons Non-Proliferation Treaty, and the Conventional Arms Convention. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, Mozambique has made the decision to prevent its candidature to be non-permanent member of the Security Council in 2023-2024. In the words of His Excellency Felipe Jacinto Nyusi, President of the Republic of Mozambique, and I quote, "The importance we attach to peace and security at national, regional, and international levels drives this historic decision to present, for the first time since our independence in 1975, our candidature to the prestigious seat of non-permanent member of the Security Council." End quote. In this context, we humbly request the support of all member states of the United Nations towards this objective. Our candidature is an expression of our firm commitment towards building and maintaining international peace and security, the preservation and respect of human rights, and the promotion of sustainable development. We therefore reiterate our commitment to serve with dedication and responsibility in order to ensure that the principles and objectives of the UN Charter, remain a source of inspiration to our people in building well-being, peace, and global security. We intend to put the modest yet meaningful experience of Mozambique at the UN's disposal in conflict mediation and resolution processes through dialogue. Let me end by once again stressing Mozambique's belief that under the United Nations stewardship and with the support of all member states, the solutions for contemporary problems, albeit challenging, are within reach and are attainable. To your excellencies, thank you very much.
We have been watching live the statements of the Foreign Minister of Mozambique, Veronica Macamo, as part of the high-level debate of the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly. The Foreign Minister thanked the United Nations and other international partners for their support to address the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. She also referred to the national efforts for development. The Mozambican Foreign Minister also addressed the security challenges facing her nation, as well as the global challenge of climate change, noting that Africa is one of the most vulnerable continents to the effects of global warming, including extreme weather events and natural disasters. In this regard, she called for international support to recover from these events and to mitigate the destruction of future disasters. We're now going to go live to the address of the representative of Trinidad and Tobago.